Good evening, and this meeting will come to order. Welcome to the 17th Special Call Budget Meeting. Tonight, leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance will be 5th grade teacher Elizabeth Hooper from Buchanan. So we're pleased to have you this evening. Thank you and welcome. Okay. We're all present and accounted for. Mr. Odom?
Okay, we have some budget amendments on this evening to clear for the 2014-15 school year. Thank you for attending last night. I think we got our message out, hopefully, and that the people understand that you worked hard at this budget, and it's what we need for schools, and I hope the Budget Committee and the Commission follows up with that for us. So I just did appreciate you being there. That was a good evening for us. The first one, we don't have any changes for number one there. Of course, we'll go to number two. Budget amendments. The first budget amendment this evening is the general purpose schools. This is insurance and legal fees. This amendment reallocates $263,191 in available funds for the on-the-job injury program and $127,309 in retirees' medical insurance to cover $285,000 in legal bills related to special education hearings, increases in our liability insurance budgeted by $100,000, and covers $5,500 in medical insurance for maintenance. The recommended motion is to amend $390,500 in already budgeted on-the-job injury program funds and retirees' medical insurance to cover $285,000 in legal bills, an additional $100,000 in liability insurance, and $5,500 in medical insurance for maintenance as presented.
The recommended motion. Mr. Hodge. And second by Mr. Young. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
2B is substitute teachers. This amendment reallocates $108,436 in budgeted substitute teacher expenditures to the appropriate budget lines as needed. The motion is to amend $108,436 in already budgeted substitute teacher expenditures to the appropriate substitute teacher budget lines as presented. And let me kind of explain that. Once we have it in the substitute teacher line, it depends on who fills it. You know, we have Advantage that fills it for us, and so they may be a certified, or it might be one that's non-certified, so it's not uncommon to have to adjust that into whichever, either certified or non-certified at the end of the year. So no more monies, it's just putting it in the proper place.
You've heard the recommended motion.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Estes, and then second.
Second.
Ms. Moore, thank you. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
C is a very good one. The general purpose school revenues. This amendment increases net general purpose school revenue by $841,118 and increases the trustees commission by $60,000. The remaining $781,118 will go to fund balance. So the motion is to amend the general purpose school revenue by $841,118 to increase trustees commission by $60,000 and to increase uncommitted fund balance by $781,118 as presented. And this is from increased sales and property tax numbers. Remember, we do the expenditure budget, but it's a year ago that's estimated. And so this is coming in because now the finance office at the courthouse is telling us higher numbers for sales tax and property tax income. So again, this is a very common amendment.
Heard the motion?
So moved.
Second.
Jordan and seconded by Mr. Holliday. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No D.
D is because of the cold winter. This utilities. This amendment reallocates $500,000 budgeted for bus contracts to electricity. We did not use as much of the diesel price adjustment funds as budgeted. The amendment also reallocates $168,000 from natural gas to the water and sewer amount. So the recommended motion is to amend $500,000 budgeted for bus contracts to electricity and to amend $168,000 from natural gas, water, and sewer as presented.
Heard the recommended motion? Mr. Hodge,
Second.
second by Mr. Holliday. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Odom, when we're doing this facility use that Mr. Young is going to share, will we be looking at maybe some comparisons to the schools where we have geothermal and where we?
We could do that.
Are we going to try? Okay, good. Yeah, I think the general public really would like to know what, as close as we can possibly estimate what we're saving with all these energy efficiency endeavors, I guess you could say.
We haven't picked a date yet for that. 13 or 15, I believe. Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Michaels.
That ought to turn out to be an informative committee, Mr. Young. So, thank you. Okay, are we at E?
I
Okay.
think we're ready for donations, and of course, this is one you cannot project ahead of time either, as far as amendment. This amendment covers $70,000 in donations and the related expenditures of $43,000 is from the Richard Siegel Foundation and the St. Thomas Health for the Coordinated School Health Program. That's those tracks we talk about. And another $27,000 was donated for energy conservation expenditures from another source. The recommended motion is to amend $70,000 in donations and the related expenditures as presented.
Heard the motion? Mr. Young?
Second.
Mr. Jordan, further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good, letter F.
Letter F is from our technology plan. This amendment cleans up the 2014-15 technology plan budget. $183,211 is being transferred from function 71-100, the regular instructional budget, to function 72-810, central and other. No new funds are included. The motion is to amend $183,211 in already budgeted technology planned expenditures from function 71-100, the regular instruction budget, to function 72-810, central and other as presented. And this again, our technology plan includes so many things on the instructional side, the telephone side, the side where we have the fire alarms. It's one of the things we talked about the other night. So when you look at the technology, you don't realize with a system our size and how many areas in servers, that sort of thing. So as it was expended during the year, what this amendment does is cleans it up to the line item numbers that it needs to match up to or reporting to the state. No new monies in this.
Heard the motion?
So moved.
Mr. Holliday and Mr. Estes. Discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
G is special education. This amendment reallocates $157,406 within the special education budget in order to fund additional contract services. Recommended motion is to amend $157,406 in already budgeted special education expenditures in order to fund $156,887 in additional contract services and $519 in other materials and supplies as presented. Now, what we do here is some contract services that we do not house totally within a house. You don't always know coming into a year how many students may need that particular service, or whatever one IEP would drive that. And so this, again, is just taking monies that's already in special ed, again, and putting in the proper line item to code for those contracted services.
Maybe we ought to call this the cleanup meeting.
It is, well, it kind of is. It's, but out of a, 100 or 306 or $7 million budget, there's some big figures here, but it's not huge when you think about it.
You heard the motion?
So moved.
Mr. Holliday? Mr. Estes, second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
H is the non-labor within major functions. This amendment reallocates a total of $589,433 in non-labor expenditures within major functions. This amendment reflects the actual flow of expenditures that we've had this year. Most of the changes are within the maintenance department. That was $311,350. Only school board approval is required for this amendment. It doesn't require the commission to do this one. So recommend motion is to amend a total of $589,000 in non-labor expenditures within major functions as presented.
Recommended motion? Mr. Hodge?
Second.
Mr. Holliday? Further discussion?
Jeff can look, he can look up if you want to know more about these. Again, it's just getting them in the right state line item number.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Sandvig? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I is certified salaries. This amendment reallocates $40,518 in certified salaries and the related $4,079 in benefits to other certified salary lines. Recommended motion is to amend a total of $44,597 in already budgeted certified salaries and the related benefits as presented.
Motion?
So moved.
Jordan? And Mr. Young. Further discussion? Y'all are not a talkative bunch today, so we're moving right along. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, J is the classified staff. This amendment reallocates $236,670 in classified salaries and the related $27,527 benefits to other classified salary lines. Nurses, custodians, and school office staff are the areas being increased in order to get us through June of 2015. Recommend motion to amend a total of $264,197 in already budgeted classified salaries and related benefits as presented. And we talked about this, I think, once before, that sometimes we have to take an extra nurse. She has some that's on PRN that we have to call one in. The regular nurse is sick or is not there for some reason. We have to cover that student. And also, again, this is fairly common to do. Our custodian may be out on an illness, and we have to provide an additional one to cover for them while somebody's out. If they've had surgery and going to be out for a while. So unforeseen things that occur during the year.
Heard the motion? Mr. Young? And Mr. Hodge. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Could I ask a question for we? How many line items are there in?
Over 400,
It's that, when you get that thick part of our budget.
31
What you're
page.
talking about.
I've never taken the time to count them, so I just thought maybe you might know.
My amendment file has over 500 lines in it, revenues and expenditures.
And those are all designated by the state. You have to use those line items.
There are some ones we could use that we do not use. But yeah,
500,
over 5, yeah.
wow.
So that's 98% accurate. We just changed 2%.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, yeah. The dollars are big in our budget, but these amendments are, when you compare it to some of the county departments, they're huge. When you look at our overall budget, they are minor.
Right.
Even with our higher grading scale, that's still an A. Good job.
Thank you.
You know, and we want to make sure the people that's watching this on television tonight or following up on this is not asking for new monies or anything. It's just taking your budget and putting it in the proper line item for those. You make an estimate when you're working on it on April and May the year before, and now that we've finished the year and a year later, you go back and place it in the correct line item number that you estimated before.
Yes, sir. Okay, I think we're at 3.
3 is a budget amendment. This is a Capital Projects Fund 177. This amendment recognizes a net increase in revenues of $22,625, then an additional $1,000 to go to the Trustees Commission, and increases the committed for capital projects amount $34,685 by $21,625. So the recommended motion is to amend the 2014-15 Capital Projects Budget Fund 177 by a net increase of revenues of $22,625 and an additional $1,000 in the Trustees Commission, and increases committed for capital projects account $34,685 by $21,625 as presented.
Heard the motion? Mr. Estes
Second.
and Mr. Holliday. If Doris Jernigan was here, we would be talking about the Trustees Commission.
Yes, we would. We always do.
And I've tried to pick that gauntlet up and run with it. You know, it continues to be a blind alley or a roadblock. So, but I'm going to continue to carry on the fight. So, okay. All right. Again, further discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, number 4, we ready for that?
Yes, sir.
4 is cell phone reimbursements. Request monthly phone reimbursements for additional staff. Gary Clark and Steve Solomon are requesting that the technical staff of 22 employees and our energy manager be added to the list of those who are eligible to receive a $35 per month reimbursement towards the cost of their personal cell phones for work purposes. This technical staff is required to be out in the schools on a regular basis, thus needing a cell phone for communication. In return, the existing Sprint phones paid by Rutherford County Schools will be turned in and the service canceled. Recommend approval of the motion to approve an additional 23 technology employees for eligibility of the $35 per month personal cell phone reimbursement. The existing Sprint phone service supplied by the Rutherford County School Board for these employees will be canceled. This is, what it's used for now is a lot of dispatching of your employees and calling back in for purchase order numbers and that sort of thing. Gary, you may want to speak to that since this is different.
They do use it for that, but they'll also be able to only carry one phone, and they'll be able to get an iPhone if they'd like, and just all furnish them with that. So it's really a good move for both sides.
Well, and what we face too is there are areas in the schools where the Sprint phones may not work as well as the phone that the personal phone the employees carry. A lot of them are already using their personal phones, and sometimes the Sprint phones.
Especially in the Eagle area.
But even in some of our older schools, you'll run into dead areas. And not to pick on Sprint, you'll have them in different areas with different carriers.
You can get out there, we'll climb a light pole.
I imagine this probably started, with Sprint Nextel and the Direct Connect, because that was so prevalent in construction, and this is just technology and communications have moved, and we need to move to this. Okay.
I'm trying to keep up with 2
So moved.
And Ms. Moore. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
A little funny to go with that, made me think of it. I heard a figure today that somebody said there was 200 and something cell phones left at Bonnaroo. And 20-something pairs of sunglasses, wasn't it, or so? So that's a little interesting sideline. Says nothing much.
Sunglasses are more important than cell phones.
Wow.
Mr. Odom, would you like me to give a quick update on this, the payroll supplement?
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
I'll let you do that.
Ms. Egley asked if I could present the very last sheet in your pack is a list of some of our payroll supplements. If we get them approved tonight as opposed to next week, we won't have to do a year-end accounts payable for them, which is just another step in the accounting process. So we would like your approval of those two.
So this would normally be under the consent agenda.
Yes, sir.
We've already approved all these, just not the amounts, isn't that right?
Well, some of these are new that you have not approved. So if you would just approve this list, we can get them paid.
Board members, give you a moment to look it over.
Nothing too glaring in these.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the school salary supplements dated 6/17/15 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. Second by Mr. Hodge. Since you've had a moment to peruse them, any questions for Mr. Sandvik? Give you another couple of minutes. It looks like they're inspecting. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carry.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
We'll make Mrs. Egley very happy.
Well, we want to please everybody that we can these
Yes.
days, you know, so. Okay. We're in pretty good shape.
It is. I can, I don't know what else it has. We had a meeting, we hosted a meeting of directors of schools for the Middle Tennessee area last Friday. The State Department came up, some of the commissioner staff, talking about Ready, that sort of thing. Next year's assessments, they will not have norming and they'll not have the cut scores set. So for this next year, some of you have gotten used to hearing the term of AMOs, annual measurable objectives. In other words, gap closures between certain groups, like socioeconomic, non-socioeconomic, and ethnic groups and all. They'll not have that because they'll have to finish the testing period next year before they can set new norms. So probably the accountability piece that goes with the No Child Left Behind, they told us in kind of general terms it'd be tied to value added, the TVOS system, and some other possible related figures, and they didn't give us a list of it. Those others are probably things that's reported now, like graduation. There was some talk about making ACT one of the annual measurable objectives, growth in that. So next year's will be somewhat different. They did say now for sure that, of course, there'll be 4 tests next year. You have your English language arts, your math, you had your science, your social studies. Social studies was a pilot this year. It was not calculated into it at all. It should be active next year. They will be, and I think I mentioned that they had taken Pearson. They removed Pearson as a vendor for that to do that accountability, and they go into Measurement Inc. And as our teachers and people will know, it's the MIST platform that you're familiar with using, and so those assessments. Very likely still, science may be, and they don't know for sure, science still may be paper and pencil. They're saying that the new science standards, they haven't, the state board, that they're working on them. They haven't been to the state board or anything like that. Probably accountability for new science standards may not come to 2018, 2019. That was kind of their projected time span now in that, so. Right. We're asking them to take a look at their textbook adoption cycle. As part of the new law, there is a regular review of standards on an ongoing basis. You know, so many years, and a textbook adoption is a 6-year adoption. So we asked them if they would please go back and take a look so that your standards is approved the year before you go into your adoption cycle for your textbook. At least a year before. That lets your textbook companies look at aligning for your state, plus that you're then hopefully purchasing those instructional materials, textbooks, that are aligned to whatever the 10 Ready standards happen to be. So they said that made sense to do that, and we'll see if that gets accomplished. But thought it was good. The other things they talked about was certainly the quick scores and some things related to that. The quick scores that drew so much attention didn't affect, it doesn't affect teacher effect, doesn't affect accountability. They use just a different method to do the quick score, which goes into, by law, the legislature required that you include that assessment in the final semester average. And so that's why it's there. Now, the legislature did, this time has passed, and this will come up when Ms. McLeod brings our new policies in, that if for some reason the state cannot deliver those scores within the last 5 days of school, then they do not have to be included in. And it'll be interesting next year. I don't think they can be included next year because they won't know what proficient and advanced is until sometime up in June to July, you know, before that renorming and all of that's done. So anyway, we'll have to adjust our policy. We had as our policy, you may remember, in the high schools, basically it counted 25% in 6 through 12. Elementary was 20%. You know, they still give us the right to set that somewhere for elementary, anywhere between 15% up to 25 or so percent. So we'll look at that and see, but anyway, that'll be a policy change that's going tied to the new 10 Ready assessment. And 10 Ready is the new term. We did that little presentation for you last time and looked at that. Teachers are receiving and will receive more sample, and it'll be open for people to see sample questions and what they look like and what the expectation level for students. And as you saw, some of those questions involve heavy reading. So the really challenge for us in teaching students, and one of the big changes is going to be, again, we've got to embed more reading questions or questions in math and science and social studies, be heavily more embedded in the literacy portion, really.
I remember we started out with TCAP, then we went to Terra Nova, if I recall. And then we went back to TCAP, now we're at 10 Ready. So things are changing. I would think that would be evident just looking at it. So, thank you, though, Mr. Zago. Mr. Hoffman?
Today, Ms. Lisa Moore and I were at TSBA for continuing education training on board superintendent relations. Reporting in on that, it was a good meeting, good training session, but it does bring to mind that we have made it a practice to include some of these assessment goals in the director's evaluation. And so as you see this moving target, see if there's not one or two of these that you pick out that you feel would be a challenge and an acceptable measurement that we could include in your evaluation as we look toward that later in the fall. So we can, some of the things we're more familiar with may not be there, but we need something to include there.
And I don't know that I knew that y'all were going to be there, but I made a phone call to Dr. Grissom today, and Commissioner McQueen has invited TSBA to the education table, utilize TSBA in discussion and talks about programs and initiatives and things that Commissioner Huffman never even considered. And so I just asked Dr. Grissom that in her talks with Commissioner McQueen that she could add a technology component for funding, since she would have her ear to approach the governor, because that's an area that we have fallen behind in our good stewardship of the county budget. And if the state could give us some assistance in that, and I'm talking about statewide. So if you don't ask, you don't receive. So Dr. Grissom, as you all know, is a pretty persuasive and articulate and knowledgeable cheerleader for public education. So just thought I'd just ask her to be there for us, and she said she would.
Another angle I was thinking of, just as you were saying that, you saw announced this week Kyle Prince has been invited to the governor's. He's one of the Teacher of the Year, the region area. We'll see how it comes out. James, we need to also communicate with him probably as he meets with the governor, the technology needs too of Rutherford County, because that may be a real insight on the table group with the governor. Hey, think about funding this again, as you did 3 years
Their
ago.
first cabinet meeting of that new Haslam teacher.
We'll communicate with him that just gives us another, if he hears it from several sources, maybe.
Right.
It might be included in the budget.
We may have several avenues to make that desire known. We are back here tomorrow night for another special at 5 o'clock. And Mr. Jordan, did you have something you
I just wanted to comment on something that this board did about 18 months ago, and that was to fund or to request the funding of the second project at Eagleville. And I was out there yesterday because there was a free lunch involved from Ben Cates. And whenever you can see Ben Cates pay for anything, then that's County Recreation Director, that's a good thing. But while we were there, we had lunch with principal, and he asked, did we want to take a tour? And of course, the answer to that was yes. And Eagleville, that is going to be a beautiful facility. They're about 6 weeks away. Mr. Clardy assures me that his crew is all over it, and I don't doubt it for a second. But I can't remember everything that's in there. There's a computer room. There's like 8 or 9 classrooms. There's a biology lab, a chemistry lab, band room, choral room, enlarged cafeteria, and I've left something out. But auditorium, yes, sir. 385 seats, I think he said. So, and it is coming right along, and it really looks pretty. And his office, Mr. Zago and board, is full of the computers that they allowed us to buy earlier. And so, I mean, that also is coming along, Well, yeah. I don't know how many computers he had in his office, but he had plenty of them. So he said, these are for testing. Well, I said, I've heard about that. I said, but anyway, I just wanted to tell the board that as far as I'm concerned, in the tour that I took yesterday, I mean, the Eagleville is going to be, all those portables are going to be gone, and parking lot's going to be freed up, looks like. And I mean, just another school where great things are happening. Let's just put it that way.
will be with the aromatic
That is correct.
environment at a football game.
That is correct.
It will tomorrow night at 5, and there's nothing further. We stand adjourned.